Thank you so much. I'm really excited to be here, and I really want to thank the local group here, Citizens for 5G Awareness, because they are setting the bar for the country, and the information that they are putting out is being used by people all over who are waking up to this issue and saying, wait, what is 5G? And wait, there's a problem with my cell phone? What do I do? How do I handle this? So I'm Executive Director of Environmental Health Trust. We publish research, we develop educational campaigns, and we present to policymakers internationally and in this country. Myself, along with Dr. Davis, who's going to be speaking in a few days and focusing more on the science, just testified at the New Hampshire State 5G Commission. So what happened in New Hampshire was they actually passed a bill, and they have a commission where they are looking at this issue, bringing different experts to testify, including those from industry, those from our federal government, scientists who are studying this, and really looking at this issue, which is what we need to happen. Now, when I first learned about this issue almost a decade ago, I was shocked to find out that in other countries, they're far ahead of us in terms of protections that are in place and awareness about this issue. So Belgium has banned the sale of cell phones designed for children, and specifically because of the radiation. In French Polynesia, they have a public education campaign. This is actually some stills I'm going to show you from a 1-minute video on things that emit electromagnetic radiation in your home and how to reduce them. And you can go on to ehtrust.org and go to our international action section and watch these and share these. We have them translated. But they show and all the things that might emit wireless radiation: your phone, your Wi-Fi router, your gaming console, outside, a cell tower, antennas that might be mounted on your roof. It's a small cell. In the nursery, a wireless baby monitor, the computer. In the kitchen, things that also emit another kind of electromagnetic field, extremely low frequency fields, appliances, or if you have a smart refrigerator, wireless security cameras, etc. This is the back of a bus in Cyprus, and they have a translation that they have online for the public education campaign. That's good. You can hear me okay? Okay. Sorry, I was too close to the mic, I think. There's a public education campaign in Cyprus put on by the committee, which is funded by the government. And in this campaign, on the back of the bus, "Don't irradiate me, learn how to protect me." And they have posters and information informing parents and people about how phones and wireless devices emit a type of radiation, and here's how you can reduce exposure. And more importantly, that you should reduce exposure. Why? Because hundreds of scientists around the world are signing appeals and ringing the alarm bell on this based on the body of published, credible scientific evidence. And the emfscientist.org in 2015 is just one of many appeals where scientists who have published research on electromagnetic fields are stating that we must reduce exposure. There's also a 5G appeal to the European Union calling to halt 5G, signed by over, I think now, 240 scientists as well. So what I wanted to do today, because Dr. Davis is going to be focusing more on the science, is talk about messaging, what we are being told, what we are being informed about, and what is missing from that information in the media. This is a poster from the UK. Electrosensitivity UK designed this campaign poster. They were having it put up around in public areas, and it ended up being banned. because there were complaints to the UK Ads Council. What it is worth the risk. Is it worth your call? And then there are all these little app symbols, and they say damaged immune system, electrosensitivity, skin disorders, cancer, dementia, depression, and so on. All effects that have been found in scientific research. And that was a few years ago that it was banned. There's another poster, which I'm going to show you soon, which also got taken down. And yet, we're told that life is easier on the iPhone. And that starts as soon as you turn it on. And my heart breaks that I'm a mom, and I remember having my daughter's friend over, and I asked her to turn the cell phone off, and this was in, had to be 8th grade. She'd just gotten a cell phone, the girl who came over, and she said to me, well, I don't know how to do that. I mean, she really didn't. It's not that she wanted to be on the phone, it's just she'd never actually turned it off. And we have to learn how to turn off the phone. We have to teach our kids how to turn it off and how to reduce exposure, but really just how to turn it off. And companies need to make phones that we can turn off easily and not have to press a million buttons in order to turn off. So here is an ad. We've got more 5G spectrum than anyone else. 5G will save lives, propel humanity forward, and usher in the utopia that will solve the literal hot mess we're in. I don't believe that ad was taken down, but this one was. This is another one from Electrosensitivity UK, just I think last month. It says, how safe is 5G? And it has quotes from Dr. Martin Pall. I can't read because the way the cursor is here, so I can't actually see my slide for some reason, but I'm seeing it over there. And quotes about the scientific research that the rollout is insane and that we need to halt it. And according to the UK Ad Council, consumers would understand from the ad that there was robust scientific evidence that demonstrated negative human health effects caused by 5G. And so that was just banned in the UK. Now you can go online and see some of their other posters, which are really excellent. They also have all kinds of graphics for social media, as does Environmental Health Trust, and we hope that you'll look at them, share them, get them out, and talk to people about this. Wireless companies warn their shareholders of risk, but not their customers, nor residents who live near the antennas. So the Crown Castle, for example, in their annual report says that if frequency emissions from wireless handsets or equipments in our communications infrastructure are demonstrated to cause negative health effects, potential future claims could adversely affect our operations, costs, or revenues. And we do not currently maintain any significant insurance with respect to these matters. They don't have insurance because no insurance company will cover the cell phone manufacturers in the United States because the risk is deemed high. And there are multiple insurance authority reports, we have them all on our website on Trust, which talk about the rating of cell phone radiation and radio frequency radiation as a high emerging risk. The latest one was Swiss Re, which ranked 5G as off the leash, I quote unquote, off the leash. And they talk about all of the issues with 5G in terms of privacy and also as the biological effects of electromagnetic fields in general and 5G in particular are still being debated. Potential claims for health impairments may come with a long latency. I was thinking the reason I came up with this, since Dr. Davis is going to be here in 2 days and do more on the science, Gene Kilborn in Killing Us Softly, which is an excellent video I hope people are familiar with, talks about advertising. Ads sell us more than products. They sell values, they sell images, they sell concepts of love, of sexuality, of success, and most importantly, of normalcy. They tell us who we are and what we should be. And what advertisement is doing by the PR agencies of telecom is creating a culture which they have manufactured. The iPhone 5, loving it is easy. That's why so many people do. And yet what we're not told is that this radiation, oh, I can't. Okay. I got it, thank you. I can't actually see on the screen here what it's doing, so. This is cell phone, this is imaging of the rate of cell phone radiation absorbed into the head of a child, and the colors represent the intensity. And you can see that a phone to the head, and the colors are white is the highest intensity and yellow, and then orange to red to purple to blue. We are not told that cell phone radiation is being absorbed into our brains and into our bodies. And yet, and I just, in my foray into the internet, was looking at what the government of Korea is doing. They passed a law labeling cell phones, but this is actually a still. Yeah, no, I can see that. I just can't see right here. This is actually a still from a video that the radio research agency of the government has put out, educating people on how to keep the phone away from your head. And you can go online to watch that as well. But yet, in the United States, we're talking about the race to 5G, where all things will be digital. This is about everything that we have now, but much, much more, with a new experimental kind of technology that is going to be moving the information from device to antenna. And this is a still from the CTIA, the wireless industry, when they talk about a race to 5G. We are in a race to 5G. This is something that industry has created, that we are in this race. Really, the race is to put as many antennas in neighborhoods as possible, because what industry is saying is that in order to roll out 5G, they will need to have hundreds of thousands of new antennas in neighborhoods. And I have here an example. The first one, the window, was sent to me by someone who said, look, they just put this in front of my living room window in my apartment in California. Is this okay? The second picture is when I went to San Francisco and I looked out my window at the place I was staying, and I saw this small cell installation. And the third picture is showing what the bottom can look like with all the electrical equipment that goes along with the antenna, which is very unsightly, and also has galvanized people, is what they look like. However, around the world, countries and cities are taking notice of this, and this is a mayor from a city in Italy. There are 130 cities now in Italy that have passed HALT 5G resolutions, 130. And that is due to the work of people who have been going out there, much like the folks who are here tonight, raising awareness, educating, having meetings, talking about this issue, and beginning that conversation and calling for a halt until safety is assured. In India, there is these clubs in local communities get together and put on these incredible art pieces. This is actually an installation. It took 100 people to make. You can walk inside of it. I have a video of it online, and it is about 5G and the impact to birds and to wildlife. And these are just stills from this large-scale installation, which actually won the regional award, and I need to find out if they have gone on to go higher up in terms of what their work. But that, art Art is always the answer, so doing art is a way to communicate this issue as well. And this is just a still also from inside. They have all of these circles with the bird and 5G representing all of the antennas that are going to be added onto the Earth. However, in the United States, the CDC says, if you are worried about cell phone radiation, follow the tips below, and we have 2 nice tips. But no one wants to be worried. And hence, our government has failed to protect us on this issue. There are U.S. cities passing protective ordinances on 5G and small cell equipment across the country. In Los Altos, they are prohibiting it in residential areas on the rights-of-way. There are setbacks in other cities, in Petaluma, the town of Bedford, New Hampshire, where I just was. There are also setbacks for schools as well. This is the website of the, oh wait, wrong one, pressed the wrong button, of the 5G State Commission to study the New Hampshire Commission to study 5G. And if you go online, you can read what this group of, I think there's 16 people, including industry, have been doing. They interviewed Dr. Michael Weid, who is the National Institutes of Health National Toxicology Program scientist, who's studying radiofrequency radiation, the $30 million study that found clear evidence of cancer in the rats, and most recently published on DNA damage. And I actually put a little quote from there in the minutes, because there are extensive minutes being taken in all of these meetings. And yes, they have had industry-funded scientists on as well. And they're asking really good questions in that commission, very highly educated group. A lot of people believe that unless you heat tissue, you won't see health effects. This study demonstrates, I can't read it, but I know it in my head, and I know that what this study demonstrates that as we, you know what, I can't, is there any way I can actually see my PowerPoint here? It would help me so much, and I don't know why. The font's too small. But what he talks about, maybe if someone comes up, is how the $30 million study that the United States government did, because we don't have research on long-term exposure to wireless or cell phones in people, found cancer, and this was at levels that were at non-heating effects. The study was very carefully designed. That's great. Okay, let's do that. That's perfect. Okay. Thank you. Okay. This study, I'm just going to read the quote from Dr. Weid. This study disproves that the only health effect is heating, as we did not have overheating, but we did see damage. And that is there in the notes of the New Hampshire 5G Commission. Should anyone say that heating is the only cause of damage from electromagnetic fields or from wireless radio frequency? And yet, the New York Times is running one of several, this is a picture, and I am sent this so many times from so many people every time I raise this issue and they're sort of new to it. They say, wait, the New York Times says that it's not really a health hazard. And in this article, it says mainstream scientists continue to see no evidence of harm from cell phone radio waves. This is simply not true. It is true that the authorities that many governments look to and the agencies that are being looked to for answers on this are not saying that there is harm, except for the National Toxicology Program at this time in the United States. But there are so many scientists who are sounding the alarm bell and saying we have a problem because 5G is going to utilize everything we have now in terms of the frequencies and the types of technologies, and it's going to add in millimeter waves, add in new kinds of technology with steerable waves, and it's more, much more radiation, as research has shown. And what people may not be aware of is that this is actually a screen save from the CEO of the New York Times talking with the CEO of Verizon about their new partnership that they're doing on 5G. They have a 5G lab they're doing for journalists. Verizon is sponsoring New York Times subscriptions for high schools, and if you look at the board of the New York Times, you see several prominent members of industry. So I have written the New York Times repeatedly, and they are not changing some of the completely unfactual things in their article. We don't even have an ombudsperson to go to. Who do you go to when the press is wrong on information? Well, thankfully, in Ireland, where this New York Times article ran, Professor Tom Butler actually filed a complaint with the Irish press ombudsperson. And it was found that that article breached Principle 1, truth and accuracy. And, thank goodness there are countries that have an organization that is doing this work, because we have to have a free press in order to have a democracy. If we don't have this information, if the information is wrong, we can't make educated decisions about our lives. For example, cell phones are tested at a distance from the body. I was shocked to find this out. I thought for sure that cell phones could be used any which way and they would be safe. I didn't know anything about the radiation they had when I first learned about this issue. But all the government requires is one test with one phone, and they make sure it meets a limit, which is not even protective. It's sky high compared to where the biological effects are. But buried in the fine print of every phone, every Wi-Fi router, even smartwatches, is a fine print instructions telling us, like the Apple iPhone 5, carry iPhone at least 10 millimeters away from your body. Now, the government of France, that has some of the most progressive work on this issue, started several years ago testing hundreds of cell phones to see, well, what if we tested them at body contact? What would the radiation level be? And they tested phones at 0 millimeters, meaning right at body contact, at 5 millimeters, and at the number that the manufacturer set. So in the United States, the manufacturer can set a distance on the phone, and that's where they will test it for the radiation that is absorbed into our bodies. And these are actually pictures from some of their tests. I don't know if you can see it, but on one side is with the 15 millimeter separation of the Galaxy J3, and on the other side, it's up to the body phantom. We use a very outdated test of basically it's like a tub of filled with a sugar liquid to represent us, to test the radiation from the phone, and all they do is measure the temperature and make sure it doesn't get too hot. But when they did this test and they put it up to the body phantom, they found that the majority of them exceeded limits of the ones that they tested at 0 millimeters. And now 17 phones have been taken off the market or updated, software updated, to reduce the radiation so that they meet our government limits. Dr. Marco Rossi, who started the PhoneGate Association in France, is actively working on that. That is another great organization to follow. They're working on, hey, if you have a limit, we need to stick with that limit and not have phones that are exceeding the limit. Now, I have gone to the FDA about this, as have many scientists, numerous times. They acknowledge that the limit potentially could be breached, but say that it wouldn't cause harm. even if it was breached. Research published by Om Gandhi, who was a scientist who actually worked to set and engineer the radiation limits many years ago. And when his research showed that children are more vulnerable in terms of having more exposure proportionate to an adult, he lost his industry funding on this issue. He's one of our advisors. And he published some research looking at the French data and found that if they took the way the French did their measurements and used the way in the United States, the way we do our measurements, that phones could violate US limits up to 11 times. And at this point in France, now several French ministers are calling for 0 millimeter separation distance in phone testing. They're saying phones should be tested at body contact. That makes complete sense. And in fact, there's several laws in France I'm going to be talking about, but just recently they had another order, and in it they say, type of information to appear under the section precautions for using the appliance. These are just a few quotes. Use hands-free kit or loudspeaker. Keep radio equipment away from the belly of pregnant women. Keep radio equipment away from the lower abdomen of adolescents. So just speaking about labeling in perspective, this is from Australia, where they have labeling. The EU has an incredible, for anyone who's been to Europe recently, similar with very graphic images, taking up a lot of the cover of the product. But, you know, how many years? We can't wait all of these as long as it took with smoking to have action on this issue and to have proper labeling. And we are sold laughter, that phones will bring us laughter. You might not be aware that France, I was talking about what they just issued, but they have had this graphic up for a long time. If you hover over each of these graphics, they tell you a new thing. It says protect children and young people even more. You hover over it, it says they're more vulnerable. Make a call with a headset. You hover over that icon they have this on the government website, and it talks about how you want to keep the phone away from the body. Do not call in poor reception areas, because when you're in an area of low signal, the phone is going to go to higher power to reach the cell tower, like in an elevator, in a car, in your basement, or maybe deep in a building where you're trying to you only have one bar. Your phone is emitting a lot of radiation at that time. Now the problem is that if you go in an area of good reception, you're going to get higher full body exposure. But it is not as intense as a cell phone to the body. However, the research on this is showing that even at very low levels, there is an impact at the cellular level, which is why we need to all work on this issue. This is modeling done with a cell phone on the lap, looking at the wireless and how the frequencies are absorbed into the body. The first image is showing how it propagates off the laptop. The other is showing the different intensities into the body. We have videos of this on our YouTube channel. We have the engineer who's published on this research on imaging of the head, of laptops on the lap, talking about this research. This is not just, me coloring the screen. And yet, the commercials say it is all about the connections you make. And here we have a man with a laptop on his lap, and two children in front of that laptop who are also receiving secondhand exposure from the laptop. But maybe it is all about the connections, because the tech industry has become one of the biggest spenders in Washington, rivaling the pharmaceutical and big business lobbies. According to an article just out in Bloomberg, $62 million in federal lobbying in 2019 by the 5 biggest tech companies. And you can compare that to the $34.7 million by the 5 largest US drug makers. Open Secrets showed 596 lobbyists for telecom, 75% are former government employees. And there's a Harvard report, Captured Agency, which is also on our website, is one of the most important resources. It's from 2015, and it is an investigation into the FCC and our Congress and the money that telecom is giving to Congress. And this graphic I actually pulled from their information. They have sort of a similar graphic I've added on because that report was in 2015, and a lot has happened since then. They talk about the revolving door between government and the telecommunications industry. So right now we have Ajit Pai, who's our FCC chair, former counsel for Verizon. Before him was Tom Wheeler, who was the former head of the Wireless Association and really laid the groundwork for 5G. We have Brendan Carr, who we talked about, Meredith Atwell Baker, who used to be an FCC commissioner, and now she's the head of the CTIA, the wireless industry, who sued San Francisco, who sued Berkeley, who is pushing this race to 5G. And most recently, Bruce Romano, who is the assistant legal chief at the FCC, is now working for Wiley Rein, the law firm of the CTIA. And it goes on, and there's more and more. And every time I give a talk, I just gave a talk in my community, and even at the local level, this is happening. So perhaps telecom is ridiculously powerful, but it is not making us powerful. They even our pets. Meet the new dog sitter. I mean, how did this happen? And this is what I think about, and I have pets. I don't have wireless in my house, but I know many people who do. They might sleep on the router. Birds nest on antennas on cell towers because it's warm. What is that doing to them? We have outside at the table with 5G awareness, I brought some of our materials that have that information on it and also talks about the things that I'm not going to get to today, energy consumption from all of these new devices, and the impact to our climate change. And we also have a flyer that we are getting the word out about 5G, your health and the environment, which I hope that everyone will take as well. This is the swipe and feed. Parents can use the mobile phones while bottle feeding. It's a plastic apparatus you put your phone in. The iPad for potty training. Child-proof your iPad. Now, I actually bought this because I wanted to have it for raising awareness, and it really does exist. It protects the device, but not the baby. There was no pre-market safety testing for long-term exposure of cell phone radiation, certainly on children. And the short story and the sad story and what broke my heart when I first learned about this, because I was sure that it was a mistake and that, of course, they were safe. Wireless technology was developed for radar and military use. There were a lot of research in the Cold War, a lot of research in Russia and the United States on this issue. In fact, microwaves were first called radar ranges. And the first cell phones came out, but in 1996 was when laws and regulations that we have now were set. It was the Telecom Act was passed, the most heavily lobbied bill at the time. It may still be the most heavily lobbied bill ever. And the EPA was defunded. They were setting safety limits. They were looking at the research and setting limits based on heat, and then they were going to set limits based on protecting from biological effects. But they were defunded, and we took on industry recommendations from industry-filled groups, and they're based on protecting from heat only. One only need look at the minutes from some of these organizations to understand the industry influence. This is from the International Commission on Electromagnetic Safety of the IEEE, the approved meeting minutes. And where is it located? At Motorola Solutions. And also, the chief scientist of Motorola was a co-head to the group that helped set the safety limits for years and years. This is, again, modeling showing...
Children are proportion.
Oh, sorry. That was actually the engineer speaking. I didn't realize I had the sound on. We have videos showing this radiation and the rate of absorption in the body, because just because it is invisible does not mean it is not there. And that is why we are trying to showcase this, to help people understand that you can ignore it, you can try not to think about it, but it is very much there and being absorbed into our bodies. And our kids are being sold devices. I'm not going to play this video, but it's all showing first steps, first birthday party, first this, first that, it's a Sprint commercial, and then first cell phone, making it seem like it is a rite of passage for a child to get a cell phone. And as Jean Kilbourne talks about, I mean, it does seem like a rite of passage, right? It's like, oh, you're getting your first cell phone. It's the most exciting thing. Your child is just overjoyed. Oh, Mom, when will I get that first cell phone? That is what has happened to us. But that is manufactured by companies, because I remember, and I'm sure many people in this room remember, when cell phones first came out, we could not imagine what a child would possibly need it for. That was like when you got to college. I got it when I started working, and I needed it for safety, supposedly. Because my car broke down a lot. And never, I mean, who could have even thought we would be where we were now? But don't worry if your kid can't handle it, if they're not ready for it, because that same company that said, actually this whole video talks about how you have to make sure your child is old enough and is mature enough, but if they're not, they can sell you a plan to block texting during family time so that parents can see what the kids are doing, to filter content, etc. The other thing that's happening in this messaging is promoting binging on devices and on the screens. Join Xfinity for Sofa Sunday, giving you permission to binge. Introducing Binge On, only from T-Mobile. And you can binge on the beach. This beautiful beach. You can look at a screen. Binge, they're talking about binging like watching whatever you want, whenever you want, as long as you want, show after show after show. I'm shocked now with, we were watching something on Netflix, and we don't actually have a TV, but we do watch videos that we have for movies. And right when you're done with one show, the next show comes right on. So let's say you're like, when you get stuck in a show, but then the next one comes on, you want to know what happens the next one, and you can just watch, you could watch all night. There's no break. That is what they want. The goal is to have us looking at screens for as long as possible. That is the goal of the designers of the technology, even to our youngest. And yes, we can buy family mode to manage our kids' online activities. Now, there's research that just came out. It was published in JAMA, that was looking at toddlers, children aged 3 to 5. And they found that the more screen use, the decreased integrity of the white matter in the brain. And that's in kids 3 to 5. And I never thought, when I got into this about a decade ago, I just never thought we'd be here, actually, where kids 3 to 5 were using screens, because at that time it was really just phones. But now there's iPads and all manner of wireless devices. This is Dr. Hugh Taylor, Chief of Obstetrics at Yale Medicine. And it's a still from the Baby Safe Project. I hope you will write that down, Baby Safe Project. Take a look at their website and the information that they have to share. In this video, he talks about research he did looking at mice who were pregnant, exposed to the cell phone, and found that the offspring, the baby mice, when they got to be like teenage aged, had hyperactivity, damaged memory, and altered brain function. Close to, as he would say, if mice could have ADHD, that's what they had. Now, there's also research showing damage to animal brains in Turkey and in other countries. There's research out of Switzerland. They looked at hundreds of teenagers, and they found that those who had more hours of the phone to the head after 1 year had memory damage. And that was a replication study. So please go to the Baby Safe Project and take a look at their materials. They have an appeal signed by over 270, I think, educators, scientists, and medical doctors recommending keeping the phone away from your pregnancy. And yet, Elmo has Smarty the smartphone. And Smarty the smartphone, and I love Sesame Street. I mean, I was raised on Sesame Street, and but the phone, he's hugging the phone because he loves the phone. The phone tells him things. The phone is smart and helps Elmo learn things. I would love for any parents who want to get involved in advocating to Sesame Street to make a change on this, and instead to teach digital citizenship and how to keep the phone away from your body and how to use technology responsibly. Because kids hug devices. This is the Echo Dot. It's rainbow. And it is for, the advertising is promoting it for children to be in children's room. It has characters that children love that it can listen to. It is being actively marketed to children, except it has a fine print warning. All of these virtual speakers have warnings saying this device should be installed and operated with a minimum distance of 20 centimeters between the radiator and your body. And this child, I pulled this from YouTube where she's singing, she's adorable, and she's singing the song with the speaker hugged to her body. And it is emitting radiation. It's connecting to the Wi-Fi router. But we don't know, but most people aren't aware of that. It's part of the Verizon's Humanability campaign. Humanability is a word coined by industry. It's a new word, I mean, to promote their products. They also created the word small cell, even though there's nothing small about a small cell. It's really microwave antennas close to us. They also coined the word street furniture for the electrical equipment. And the way language is used is shaping the conversation. And we have to help shape the conversation and clarify what is going on. Because this is not street furniture. In fact, in the image here, where you have the two people standing, she woke up, the homeowner woke up and found this in front of her home and was like, what is going on? And found out it was for a future installation. It actually ended up getting removed after the news coverage that ensued. There is pollution, abuse, environmental destruction, and disregard for human rights at every stage of the life cycle of every wireless, especially wireless devices, but our electronics. Something that we could talk for several more hours and have several conferences on would be conflict minerals, the raw minerals that are mined and used in our phones. It's fueling wars in other countries. We have young children who are going down and mining these minerals, and of course getting sick. I don't think, if we told that 10-year-old that got their first phone that children were dying for this phone, they called, what are we doing? And please learn more about conflict minerals. Inhumane working conditions. That picture is actually showing suicide nets on a company that's manufacturing parts for phones, because the workers were in there for so long with such terrible conditions that they were jumping out of the windows. Toxins in manufacturing. So they're making the phones, they're inhumane working conditions. Then when you get the parts and putting them together, they are being bathed in toxic chemicals, which are then poisoning those workers. There's a case in Korea of so many young women in their 20s with leukemia because of the exposure to all the toxic chemicals, and lawsuits moving forward on that. Then there's the radiation exposure when you get the phone, and then there's the electronic waste, the e-waste. We have a huge problem. These devices are made to break. They are made to last for just a short amount of time. You know how that electric meter we used to have lasted from, decades and decades and decades? And now we have these new smart meters which emit radio frequency radiation, which really only last a few years. And then you have to get new ones. Same with our phones, same with all of these devices. As soon as you get them, they're old, and you have to go get a new one. There's also another aspect to the pollution. We think we're recycling devices. A lot of times, when you, quote unquote, recycle your cell phone, it's actually going to another country where there's informal recycling happening. I just did a talk on this with a lot of the reports that are done on this, and it's really kids and families picking apart your phone, getting poisoned by the parts in the phone, the lead, all the toxic materials that are inside the phone when you open it up. So we have a problem. This is not a sustainable technology. It is not sustainable. It's not environmentally responsible to move forward as we are moving forward. And yet, introducing Verizon 5G Home, be free. Is this freedom? Now, in addition to research showing damage to trees, of which there is a large number, both trees and plants, you can go on our website to find that, I wanted to raise this because I was sent this article, it's from Devon Live. Trees are being trimmed and cut for this technology. The headline was, "Anger as a 100-year-old tree butchered by broadband company." The project manager was quoted as saying, "It's only natural for people to feel attached to their local environment, and we're sorry to hear of Mr. Sheard's distress," that's the man who complained that the tree was cut, "at the tree's altered appearance. This tree had overhanging branches that were interfering with BT phone lines. We needed to deliver a better service to our customers in the local area, and we also wanted to make the tree safe." And this is not a lone example of trees being trimmed. In Washington, D.C., from where I am, it is a test city, and at the 8-hour hearing that was held, I am so thankful for there are so many tree groups in D.C. who came and testified for the trees, including the Sierra Club and other groups, saying, we have to protect the trees. We don't know how this is going to affect them. You can't just just roll this out. But yet they are in D.C. People are not able to stop the rollout. We will get 100% of what you love.